it's Gimbo, your second favorite sour run. If you're here, there is a chance that you're still watching the Rings of Power.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Thank you for staying with me. We can do this together. Episode 7 of the Rings of Power Season 2 is here, so without further ado, let's get into it. We start off with the recap. The previous episode felt very squished together. I guess the showrunners are done patching up the story before the finale. Recap is over, but no title sequence. I swear, literally no two episodes of the series begin the same way. Either way, we begin with a blissful landscape. It's Celebrimbor, and he's forging the 9 rings for men. If you haven't seen the previous episode, Eregion is under attack, but Celebrimbor sees only an illusion created by Sauron. Suddenly, a rodent infestation occurs.
Hello, Mr. Mouse.
Celebrimbor starts to see some cracks in the illusion, but he continues to be manipulated.
Feanor's hammer is missing a...
You know how forgetful you can be.
Sauron's gaslighting will continue in this episode, and I am all for it.
I trust you are not feeling overwhelmed again.
On the riverbank outside Eregion, the orcs are committing war crimes. They wanted to capture Sauron, but of course, why wouldn't they level a whole city? Anatar and his helpful simp are here to make bad tactical mistakes.
I am taking command of our defenses.
God bless you, my lord.
Adar orders his orcs to drop rocks in the river and dry up a passage for his army. The elves are 2 minutes away from getting brutally slaughtered. Meanwhile, Celebrimbor struggles with the rodent and draws on a candle. Word about the siege reaches Khazad Dûm, and King Durin is very happy to start making more money. But there's a problem. Prince Durin and his wife are in the mine, blocking the works. In the impenetrable darkness, which I am fixing for your convenience, a deal is reached. They will not dig. Elrond comes around and he hears this.
I'm about to overthrow my father.
Who the fuck starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
Meanwhile, the orcs are launching a meat wave upon Eregion. Elves are fighting hard, but there are just too many orcs. Anatar is impatient about the progress with the rings. No wonder, the city is about to be taken. But Celebrimbor just keeps looking at the rodent. Here's where it gets interesting. The elf has figured out he's living in a simulation. The NPCs work in cycles, the textures don't load, even the mechanics are simplified. Anatar seems to be running the ruse on low settings.
The candles have not burned an inch all day.
This reminds me of a scene from the TV show Person of Interest. Obscure reference, but take a look.
Coolly delivered sadistic warning.
Self-deprecating inquiry into the time necessary to infiltrate system.
Overly affectionate greeting.
Greeting.
The illusion is broken and Celebrimbor realizes the Mithril was never Mithril, and that Anatar is not quite who he pretends to be. It doesn't matter though, as Sauron is already prepared for this turn of events, and Celebrimbor loses the allegiance of his elves, but not before Mirdania meets her maker.
No!
All this can end.
Out of nowhere, an elvish army spawns, with King Gil-galad and Elrond, who we just saw visiting the dwarves. But Adar has a trick up his sleeve. As he reveals Galadriel, the elven charge immediately stops. Quick note here, nice cinematography and symbolism, with the orcs stopping just short of the light. Either way, the elves stop charging and the story takes us to the negotiating table. This is literally the scene from Family Guy.
And thus began the 1,000-year war between the avians and the insects. It was a brutal war. It was a bitter war. And most importantly, it was a visually spectacular war. Sorry, I'm being told this would be very expensive to animate.
The negotiations lead to nothing, but we do get a kiss and some snarling. Dwarves are expected to join the attack on Adar, so Prince Durin rallies them to the cause.
Deeper than the bones of the earth!
We get a glimpse of Celebrimbor completing the rings under the stress, even though I'm not sure what else could he possibly be threatened with at this point. The story takes us to a battlefield, where a horse regrettably gets murdered. Adar's orcs are very close to taking the city, but they are taking losses.
The elf is faring better than you expected.
In a weird turn of events, they start crying about it.
Many Uruk are dying. What are your orders, Lord Father?
Galadriel escapes and walks through the camp in disguise. The show wants me to believe she smells exactly like an orc would, so she's not so easy to detect. I mean, maybe it's true after so many days in captivity. As she moves through the camp, Galadriel is made to help with moving some dead orcs, and we see a ceremony for the fallen, so to speak. I'm not sure why this show tries so hard to humanize orcs. The dwarves are assembling the army, but someone cries out at Prince Durin from a dark corridor. And it seems that the king has gone mad. Meanwhile, the elves are using forbidden weapons. Celebrimbor and Anatar share a little chat on the rings, and that changes the elf's mind so profoundly he tries to cast them into fire. But the rings don't melt and they don't get hot. Horrified, Celebrimbor wants to escape, but he is shackled. He tries to break the bonds with some tools, to no avail. Therefore, Celebrimbor quickly comes up with a gory plan. He could have tried this device on the chain, just saying. Celebrimbor escapes and meets Galadriel, who hides the 9 rings on her chest. The elf and his guard go back to the workshop to arrest Anatar, which turns out to be a terrible idea. Outside, the battle rages, and Adar decides to release bad CGI, which promptly dies in a weird way.
Brother,
The elves are outnumbered and taking losses. The sun rises and the dwarves are supposed to come to the rescue, but no one is to be seen. Arondir and Adar end up harming each other, and the city wall finally gives up. The last thing we see is Adar holding the Ring of Power, but the last thing we hear is more interesting. Alright. This episode was on another level compared to the rest of the season. The fights were high quality, the stakes were real, and I suppose the long build-up paid off in a way. However, this is more of a first look video, and it could be that I'm just happy to not listen to 45 minutes of boring dialogue. Maybe I'm also being deceived.
This is all his design!
Either way, we're so close to the end, now I have to continue watching. Stay tuned for the finale next week. Goodbye.